This is an honor to be here. I've never been in court, but listening to them, you would think I have committed a lot of wrongdoing all my life. I've been the CEO of 10 to 12 major companies, all dealing with U.S. manufacturing. We've created hundreds of thousands of jobs in this country. My last company, I had a license in all 50 states. I had an A license in California, which means I could build the Golden Gate Bridge. So I understand a little bit more than a bunch of unelected bureaucrats do about laws and how to comply with laws, and I've never been in violation of the law. This is an unusual situation where we sit here with the citizen, my beautiful wife, and myself, arrayed against the police powers of the state and a taxpayer-funded charity who belongs here in a major, I will prove that they don't belong here, and one of the reasons why I didn't have my previous counsel. The great David Lucas, the petition on Lucas versus South Carolina, endorsed what I was doing by saying what they are doing is a descent into total tyranny. I'm going to tell you how that is. In the next few days, I will show that the General Assembly, in all their wisdom, recognized one thing very clearly, that the Constitution is supreme. It is and will always remain the supreme law of the land, regardless of what these unelected agencies say. And the Constitution, 48, 39, 13, Section 13, is so clear on taking, so clear on the rights of private property. It literally leaves no room for any type of private property taking without compensation.
Can I stop you on that? I want you to understand, because I saw that one of the issues you raised was takings. This court doesn't hear takings issues. If I was to decide or make a decision in this court that would result in a potential takings, then you would bring that action in another court to be compensated for that.
No, I totally understand. What I'm trying to make is the connection between the Constitution and the Act.
Okay.
And so the Act, under 48, 39, 30C, which you quoted some version of it, 48, 39, 30C is very, very clear. It says that there is nothing that any application of the law, any application of the regulation cannot be in violation of the Constitution, cannot be a regulatory taking and be in violation of the Constitution of South Carolina and the Constitution of the United States. So the General Assembly, in creating this act, wanted to make very sure that's the case. So then I will show during this the next few days that the reading is so clear. I'm a business guy, and so I read many, many contracts in my life. And I will show that in 48, 39, 10.
Well, let me get there.
Pardon me?
Let me get there.
Okay.
I like to look at it when you're
Sure.
recording.
Take your time.
Oh, I won't take long. Right up there. 48, 39, 10.
You will see that coastal waters is a defined term. It says coastal waters means this. The next letter on that alphabet says tidelands means this. The next letter says beaches means this. The next letter says dunes means this. And the very next alphabet, J, says there are 4 critical areas: coastal, defined term; tidelands, defined term; beaches, defined term; beach dune, a combination of 2 defined terms. Now, the only way you can read this differently is if you say this General Assembly was stupid. They defined 3 terms, and the 4th term they decided, according to them, not to define. When it is so clear that the 4th term, the 4th critical area, is a combination of 2 defined terms. I've had business contracts I've read my whole life. You cannot come up with your own defined term. When it says beaches is this, dunes is this, and beach dune is this. The second reason for that, Your Honor, is if you look at that, each one, coastal waters and tidelands, has geographic boundaries. Beaches and dunes does not, under the defined terms. So all the General Assembly was doing is saying, hey, I cannot violate 483930C. Under no circumstances can I violate that or in turn the US Constitution. So what this wonderful body has been doing for many, many, many years, from the beginning of time, they have been interpreting it correctly. That is exactly how they've administered these laws, exactly how the laws, all the regulations, all their guidance, everything they've ever done, with one exception of Summer House in 1998, like she brought up. And then what happened in Summer House? The General Assembly got very concerned that once again they were stepping past lines they're not supposed to. And so in 1999, they go in and change the regulation, reaffirming that you stop at the setback line. Because there is no law on the land that can violate. It says that in 483930C. It says no, every regulation has to comply. It has defined terms. It says this is the meaning of coastal, this is the meaning of tideland, this is the meaning of beach, this is the meaning of dune. Beach dune is a combination of two defined terms. And all of a sudden, we have decided we're going to come up with something. We will show during the course of this trial that interpreting the act the way they're doing it will result in unlimited jurisdiction. It untethers beaches. It says the General Assembly has no idea what they're talking about. It untethers beaches from any geographic control, and it hands it over to these people you see sitting here. Every one of them unelected.
Well, when you say that beaches is defined as land is subject to periodic inundation.
Perfect. I don't disagree with that.
So,
but beach dune is not.
but do they have the right
Absolutely
to
they do.
regulate beaches? Is what I'm asking.
Okay, but I'm saying beach dune is not a defined term, Your Honor. It's a combination of beaches and dunes. That's how it reads. It's a combination of the defined term beach and the defined term dune. And all they were doing is they said the first two critical areas, if you read the definitions and the critical areas, it puts geographic boundaries on them. On beaches, which I don't disagree with your reading of it, and dunes, there is no geographic boundary. So they simply combine those into a geographic boundary.
Let me stop you here and just ask. They did define primary dunes, I think it was. I don't
Correct, they did.
But when they said beach dune system,
Correct.
it's like they put their own definition right in there. They said they did the term, and then they said which is the area from mean high water mark to the setback line as determined by 4839-280.
Correct.
So why would I not take that as the definition of the beach dune system and let beaches stand alone as its own definition?
Because if you look at it, the way you would, Your Honor, I'm not going to tell you how to interpret it. You know the law.
Right to argue
But I'm saying, when you look at a defined term, you have to assume that the combination of, when they use a defined term and a combination, unless you say it somehow completely upends the statute, you have to say, when they say beach dune, it's a combination of a defined term beach and a defined term dune. All they're doing with beach dune is simply saying, beach dune is a beach defined above, and a dune defined above, and both of those, in order to comply with 483930C, has a boundary. Because if you don't, you open this up and you say, every property in this entire state from coast to coast is going to be determining its boundaries, not by there's no way to predict it. You will never sell a home, because I could sign a contract with you today, and you say, Mr. Reddy, I need 60 days to close on this home. Yes, Your Honor, you can have 60 days. 60 days later you come, one of these guys has walked by with a flag and said, whoa, I don't see any vegetation there. Boom, I put a flag. It is unlimited jurisdiction. if you untether it, it is unlimited jurisdiction at the discretion of an unelected bureaucrat. We cannot subject the citizens of the state. This is tyranny at its very best, and this is what David Lucas said. George Washington, Your Honor, simply said, freedom and property rights go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. This country was founded on that. These people are trying to dismantle it. And they dismantle it by accusing me of doing all kinds of wrongdoing when I don't ever have a history. I have been on the front lines of business for my whole life. If anyone took a shot at me, they would have taken a shot at me a long time ago. We don't have a history of that. Look at my wife. You think she'd break the law, Your Honor? She'd probably kick me if I did. I will show also that this clarification, as they put it, will result in the greatest confiscation of private property ever seen in the state, because they are basically turned loose. And at that point in time, I'm telling you, this is getting national attention. Just before I left home yesterday, the Pacific Legal Foundation called me because they saw an article written by fake news over there, and they simply said, this is unprecedented. We have never seen anything like this. Are you saying there is no boundaries? They can just walk in and say, I don't see vegetation. Well, my neighbor is a very great eye surgeon, Mr. Solomon. One of them walked down and put a flag under his house because that's where they saw the vegetation. Your Honor, this is tyranny at its very best. You can't get any worse than this. I will show that when the jurisdictional lines were set up, the original setback lines and the original so-called lines are still in place, which they want to ignore now and say, oh, it has no meaning. It was a quid pro quo with owners. Owners gave the state jurisdiction with no compensation, and the offset was they were going to maintain the public beach. And they did. In 2018, the General Assembly passed a law. They said no more retreat. No more retreat. Why did they say no more retreat? Because Scalia and these great Supreme Court justices ruled that if you retreat, like the taxpayer-funded charity over there saying, if you retreat back, what happens is you have to buy, the state has to buy the property and shrink the tax base. And they said, whoa, no more retreat. Are we not going to retreat? We're going to retreat the water. Are you going to retreat the water? Replenish, re-nourish, and maintain a vegetated dune. They have not replenished my side of the beach. I will show, Your Honor, I will show with documents in one of their, with one of the witnesses. Not only has there been no replenishment in 25 years in that section of the beach, I will show that if I ran my company this way, I would be in jail for fraud. They took $7 million of public money in 2018, claiming they were going to put 600,000 cubic yards of sand between breach inlet and the connector. There's a permit. It says 600 out of 1.8 million cubic yards. Joint project with Wild Dunes, the private entity. What happened? Nothing. Nothing. It all went in there, and my taxpayer money never came back. Why doesn't that taxpayer-funded charity go after that? That would be in the public interest. No, they don't. That money has gone all into that. If I did that running a company, I'd be in jail. Your Honor, what's going on here is something that you will see in the next few days. We're going to uncover this thing in a big way. I will also show that if this mismanagement of the beach had not happened, there is no dune, by the way. People who come to our beach say, from anywhere, even from California, said, there is no dune on this beach. Isn't that supposed to be the first line of protection? No, flat. My property is the first line. Well, what does she say? She says, oh, your property is projecting out there. Well, that's because all the other properties are washed away. So what do you want me to do? Be washed away with the rest of them? Great. But under the law, under the Constitution, you're supposed to buy it, not grab it and say, oh, I gave you public beach by just washing away your property. I will also show that this state has targeted me. I am entitled under state law and under the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution to equal protection. I will show they pass it off as one case. It is not one case. They have never, with the exception of Summer House that was changed, ever imposed this thing. And in Hilton Head, 5 homeowners.
What did you say impose this thing?
It required permitting of construction, landward of the setback. And in Hilton Head, 5 homeowners, 85 feet from their home, in the middle of the beach. There's not a lick of vegetation. You can look at it with a microscope, you won't see vegetation. They get the approval from this great agency to build it. They built a wall 30 feet deep in the ocean. My little structure that she shows you all these pictures of was inside my fence, 7 foot, put by a guy with a flip phone named Jose. And they call that an erosion control structure. I will also show that how they treated Hilton Head and how they treated me.
So
they
are
never.
you saying that your erosion control structure is what they call it, a hard erosion control structure? Are you saying it's not that, it's something?
My erosion control structure, everyone knows an erosion control structure has to be, means it's water facing. It has to face the water. My original thing was put in because I have an artificial turf. I had an artificial turf company at that time. And I used to use my backyard as a lab to try to do various projects with it. And I saw wrinkles in my turf. And the guy said, there's too much of instability with your soil. So he sent his landscape guy. The guy dug a hole and put a 7-foot retaining wall. She makes it seem like a conspiracy. I covered it up with sand. I didn't cover it up with sand. They dug the wall. And whatever he dug out, he put back in. What would you want me to do? Haul the sand off and say, look, I got a retaining wall in my yard. This is crazy what these people are doing. They are targeting me, Your Honor. I will prove that today. But they're targeting me and how they're treating me. They're going after me. They've never said this. They don't like the fact that I promote things like Doja of which I'm the founder. And so this is their way of retaliating. I will also show that even now, even yesterday, even this morning, they're fighting to allow me to enter evidence. A lot of that evidence deals with Hilton Head. They don't want you to see that, and I'll show you why. I will show that CCL, who has all these noble things she talks about, does not belong in here. My lawyer should never have allowed them in here. They're ignoring a very simple, they want to ignore the law. The public trust doctrine in South Carolina says the public has access, the state owns the land below the mean high tide line. That is the public trust doctrine. The state owns the land below the mean high tide line. My wall is landward of the mean high tide line. Nothing says I should be giving people saying, if they don't want to maintain the beach, if they don't want to put a dune, I have to keep backing up my yard so someone can take their dog for a walk. I want to ask this guy, whoever is going to testify on this walking thing, what does he think? You don't keep the beach, you don't put sand, you don't keep a dune. I need to keep backing up? Where do I need to back up? Well, some of them are backed up to the porch right now, to their back porch. While these people say, we are protecting the beach. What have they done? They have not done one thing to protect the beach, Your Honor. In 2018, the law was changed. It said no more retreat. What have they done? We will ask them on the witness stand, what have you done to change your policy? You haven't. She just stood up there and said, well, we got to back up. They read this book, The Rising Seas, that says every barrier island should be evacuated. And that's what's happened. CCL, through Hilton Head, which I will show, has taken over the agenda of this entity. And that's what you're seeing, tyranny against the people. I will also show that I have donated They're talking about beach access. This is my property. I donated 3 feet of my property. My neighbor donated 3 feet of their property, and we have 6 feet of beach access from the road all the way to the beach. Beyond that, I'm not required to give them access up to the mean high tide line, and until today, my beautiful wife and I are paying taxes to the mean high tide line, which is 200 feet plus past my so-called structure. I will also show, Your Honor, that finally I will show that if this beach that they're talking about is even if you disconnected from what the General Assembly decided, we do not meet the definition like you read, Your Honor. It's a periodic tidal and wave inundation so that no non-littoral is established. They marked jurisdiction on my property with 1 data point. One. They had 1 data point from Idalia. And Idalia happened, I will show during testimony, where the storm surge from Idalia was less than Irma, less than Matthew, that were hurricanes. Irma and Matthew never impacted us because there was a dune. Idalia, there was no dune. So Idalia did impact us. They came over there and they marked it with 1 data point. They're going to have their expert, a lot of taxpayer money, $25-some thousand gone to the expert, I believe. All of these people are paying into this taxpayer money, and this is a hoax. He's going to come here and talk about the definition of periodic from apparently read in Microsoft Word. Well, you know what? The definition of periodic can be anything, but it's not one. And then prior to that, Your Honor, for 35 years, there was vegetation established. 35. So, like I said, in summary, Your Honor, this clarification they're talking about is not a clarification, but will provide unelected agencies unlimited jurisdiction in violation of 30-10-C in the statute. I stand as a citizen in the breach to stem this largest confiscation of private land, and this court, in Your Honor, you stand between freedom and tyranny. God bless.
Well, thank you for the last part. How would you interpret the meaning of periodic inundation?
Periodic inundation means there is regular tidal inundation that happens, which happens, the gravitational forces of the sun and moon, and nothing can be established. It's so that is very important. So that is a cause and effect. So that means it's happening at such a frequency.
Well, how would the periodic inundation have to occur?
I don't know. You should ask them that, right? Why don't they define that?
Well, I've got a definition here. You get to give your interpretation.
Well, my interpretation is simply on it. It's not once.
Okay.
Interpret it any way you want. It's not once. They mark their jurisdiction with 1 data point. All this nonsense they're going to feed you, all these people sitting here are going to be paying taxpayer money to hear this nonsense. You got to get down to the one thing. Are you going to give them unlimited jurisdiction on private property? There are no boundaries. No, none at all. And are you going to say that these type of judgments they can use? What is periodic? What is established? One of them actually is going to, it says in his deposition, they don't have the time. They got thousands of people, millions of dollars of taxpayer money being wasted here. But they don't have the time to see if it's really periodic. So all they do is they walk down the beach with a flag in their pocket and say, I don't see vegetation. That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you for accommodating us.
All right.